So welcome. We are back in San Francisco after spending 16 days in California, going up and down the coast. Feels relatively good to be back in a familiar place.
Oh, Carlos.
Oh, there's Carlos. I haven't seen Carlos in a while. How are you?
Oh, 2 thumbs up. That's good.
So what do we have to report? COVID is running out of control in America. And our ex-president, or I guess our current president, refuses to concede the election and is trying to figure out how he can stay in the White House, causing a lot of uncertainty and anxiety. Dukkha. The weather has been amazing in California. It's mid-November and sunny, and it's almost like Madrid. Very nice. What else? Anything else happening?
Well, COVID-wise, 41 out of over 50 counties in California have a curfew now
Yeah,
until
we're back.
December 21st. Curfew 10 p.m. till 5 a.m.
Yeah, which our neighbors don't seem to want to follow. But what else? Anything else?
No, I don't think so.
Yeah.
Politics-wise, California news.
So you're back home now?
Oh yeah, we're in San Francisco.
Oh, good.
Well, it's so funny. You know, we went to some of the nicest parts of California that there are, right?
Wow.
Maybe is or are. Well, anyways,
Okay.
mid Central Coast, coastal areas, desert. You know, little mountain. It's almost like a retreat area called Ojai, someplace I'd never been, but beautiful.
Mm.
And if God were to say, Jim, you need to stay in California the rest of your life, I don't think I would be heartbroken, but I really want to be in Spain. I mean, it is so true. It's like I prefer living in Europe for sure compared to America. Well, it's going to also kind of lead to where we are now. We're continuing to talk about the Noble Eightfold Path, and we're on the second factor of right thought, right? A right resolve, a right intention. And this really kind of plays in to just our regular life, right? Those things that we think about, the tendencies of our mind, the habits of our mind. You know, the first one was right view or right belief, and how these things can really affect how we see the world. And right now, I just see Trump voters everywhere I look. You know, it's like that movie Sixth Sense, where the young boy sees dead people.
Yeah.
I see dead people. You know, I see Trump people like everywhere. You know?
Give it 5 years that no one will admit they voted for him.
I don't know. I don't know if you're right. You know, I think it may take longer than that. The people are very confused. Many are very confused. It may take a while, but we'll talk about that after the meditation. Not Trump, but changing our thoughts. You know, seeing them, noticing, and then possibly changing them. But anyway, so they sort of play in, you know, to real life and Buddhism. Yeah. So, anyways, well, yeah, let's meditate. I feel a little bit drawn, you know, in those final 10 minutes to again open up our awareness a little bit. But I want to read a quote by Sayadaw Itejanio. He's the young monk, well, young to me, who sends out a daily, what would you call it? A daily suggestion. It might be like that. So today's suggestion is just be the supervisor. Just be the supervisor. So the gestor, I guess you might say. He says, don't try to be aware. Don't try to be aware. Instead, just be the supervisor, checking often to see whether awareness is doing its job. So almost like treating awareness as an employee, right? Just that knows how to do its job. It doesn't really need much managing, but every once in a while we want to check on it to make sure it's doing its job. So it's really kind of a hands-off sort of relationship, right? And hopefully it'll become obvious once we start to do it. But that'll be like the last 10 minutes where we'll step back a little bit and we'll just be the supervisor of awareness as awareness does its thing, being aware of whatever it's aware of. Hopefully that makes sense. Meanwhile, let's start off. We'll do 20 minutes of samatha concentration calming practice. Set my little timer. Okay. So as usual, let's find a comfortable posture and one that also has an element of dignity and stability to it, with the back straight. Normally we close our eyes, although if you're really sleepy, I know it's later there for you in Europe, you can also keep your eyes open. And so usually we start off with a grounding of the attention, of the awareness into the body, bringing the mind and the body together. So you could do this a variety of ways, maybe a body scan, scanning from head to toe or toe to head. Or maybe with a more open awareness, just looking for any kind of sensation in the body, presence of the body, could be the weight of the body. And just notice or feel that. Maybe at the points of contact where the body is making connection with the floor or the cushion or the chair or the couch. And I know, especially after a full day, this might be kind of difficult. The mind will want to be thinking, maybe reviewing what happened today, planning what you're going to do tonight or tomorrow. So we don't want to fight with the thinking mind, but rather just try to let those thoughts go and come back to more of a feeling state where you're feeling the present moment, feeling your body, feeling sensations. And so at any time during the meditation, you can use your posture, your body as an anchor or as a home base, a place to come back to after you've noticed your thinking. Or we can use the breath. So let's try to find the breath, see how that is for you. So maybe you notice the breath in the belly, the movement of the belly. This is a very common and relaxing place to watch the breath. It can calm our nerves oftentimes if we pay attention to the breath in the belly. Or you could follow it in the chest, or of course, coming in and out of the nostrils. I would say find a place that you like, that you enjoy, where the breath is easy to follow. Let that be your anchor. And if you want a more receptive anchor, you can also use hearing or listening. So you just listen to sounds without interpreting them or judging them or naming them. Simply notice when sounds enter your ears. So any one of these three choices, body, breath, or sounds, make a good anchor so you can keep coming back, try to stay with it without too much force, but a little bit of energy, centering the mind, calming the mind, focusing the mind, creating samadhi, a relaxed concentration, without judgment, hopefully without frustration. Just relax into the present moment. one tool you can use, especially if you're experiencing lots of sticky thought, is to name or label your experience, label the breath, inhaling, exhaling. And when thoughts are present, thinking, thinking. And as you return to your anchor, returning, returning. It's a very supportive tool that you can use or not, depending on if it's helpful. So, if you're willing, and the mind is maybe a little calmer, a little more centered, you can shift your perspective ever so slightly to one that is a little more of an observer of awareness. So maybe how this might look is you notice what you're noticing and maybe even name it. So is the body aware of sensations, for example? And you just know it. You're clear that the body is experiencing sensation, nothing more. Or maybe sounds, like right now, the sound of my voice. You know that you're hearing, you're aware that sounds are coming in, and there's cognition, there's awareness of that. Without trying to control the awareness, just let it be aware of whatever it's aware of, and then you're aware of that. You know that. Being like this supervisor where you're just checking in with your awareness, with kindness, curiosity, but also a sense of knowing, sense of presence. Awareness of awareness, sometimes also called natural awareness. Good. So no matter where your attention might have been or your awareness, let's gather it up and return it to the body, reestablishing an embodied presence, reunifying the mind and the body. So maybe noticing any new sensations that might be present. Maybe there's body parts sleeping or numb or tingling. Feeling those. Maybe noticing how you might be able to envelop or wrap your body in awareness with a little more ease now. Maybe it's a little easier than at the beginning. A little more awareness. And then taking a moment to feel the heart center, the area in the chest. And reminding yourself or recalling, thanking yourself for your practice, for being here today, for taking time to nourish and nurture yourself in this way. Maybe also mentally thanking others on the call, doing the same. And reminding ourselves that although this may seem like a solitary practice, maybe even a selfish practice, it is anything but. It's probably the best, most useful and helpful thing we can do to be of service to others. So we do it for our own well-being and the well-being of all beings. And then just imagining you can radiate out awareness, kind, loving awareness in all directions, giving everybody a big awareness hug. And when you hear the sound of the bell, just again, continuing to be aware, continuing to feel, continuing to notice. Well, thank you, everyone. Always a pleasure for me to practice with you guys. You know, and it's funny, even though I'm doing the guiding, I also just have nice periods where I'm just practicing, just doing the same. Feels really good. So I thought I would continue to talk about the noble eightfold path. Wait, did I say that right? Noble eightfold path. Right? And I'm gonna, this always makes me nervous. I'm gonna do a little share screen so we can review them real quick. And let's see, I'm so bad at this. Let's see if I go there and then go here. Oh, does everybody see the Noble Eightfold Path on their screen? Yeah, okay, very good. So again, we'll do just to review. I think we could just keep doing this over and over because it's funny, it's sort of a metaphor as to how the path works. So the way it's traditionally listed is that, as I have it here, where the very first factor is right view or right understanding, samaditi, and that we did a couple Sundays. The second factor is what we're going to talk a little bit more about today, right thought, also translated as right resolve or intention. And these are considered like the wisdom factors, and they precede the next three, speech, action, and livelihood, because thought precedes action, right? That's kind of just the order of things. It starts off as a thought, and then we either say something or we do something. So it comes before the ethical or sila factors of speech, action, and livelihood. And then these precede the samadhi or practice three of effort, mindfulness, sati, and concentration, samadhi. And one reason that is if you are not acting ethically, right? If you're stealing, lying, killing, oh my God, or doing something to contribute to that, it's going to be very hard to sit down for 30 minutes, or today it was 33 minutes, and have a very pleasant meditative experience, probably. Your mind is going to be darla welting over all that stuff, right? It's not going to be a very clean, clear, stable mind, probably. So we need to live an ethical life so that we can have a meditative practice. Now, without a meditative practice, or without some element of clarity that comes from meditation, it's really hard to have the right view, a right understanding, and the right thought. So the path is almost circular. It keeps going. So maybe we get on the path just a little bit. Maybe we have just enough right view or just enough faith that this may work, just enough hope that this may work. We get on, we're able to do a little bit of practice. That wipes away a little more dust from our eyes, right? And then we're able to see more clearly. And as we see more clearly, we act more ethically. As we act more ethically, our concentration practice becomes easier, and then we see even more clearly. And it just keeps going, and it just deepens and deepens and deepens. So with that, we'll talk a little bit about right thought. I have a couple of props. So the first prop, many of you know, I can't tell if there's a mirror image of that or whether you actually see the correct image, but so this is Joseph Goldstein's mindfulness book. There's at least one copy, I believe, in Saladana, and it's really the best. It's the best mindfulness book that I know. And it goes through the four factors of mindfulness. And as many of you know, in the fourth factor, then include the Four Noble Truths, which then includes the Noble Eightfold Path. So you find the Noble Eightfold Path in this book, done in a very good way. But I also want to remind you guys, hopefully you can see that. So this is a Kindle version of Bhikkhu Bodhi's, and this one's in Spanish, Bhikkhu Bodhi's book on the Noble Eightfold Path. And there's also a copy of that at Saladana, but that is just this pithy little book. It may be only 100 pages, but it's the most scholarly, concise interpretation of the Noble Eightfold Path that I know of, Bhikkhu Bodhi. And Joseph Goldstein draws a lot from that. He also draws a lot from Bhikkhu Analayo and other experts. But I highly recommend the Bhikkhu Bodhi little version, if you want to further your studies and your understanding. Yeah. So just kind of as an introduction, and this really comes from Joseph Goldstein, it's a reminder of how our minds function and how we develop habits of mind due to causes and conditions in our life, right? We develop tendencies of thought, we develop beliefs that influence our thoughts, they influence how we see things, right? We develop like voices almost, maybe the autocritica, the how do we say that in English? The self-critic, maybe we have that voice, or the judging voice, right? Or maybe you have a very positive voice in your head where everything is fine, right? I once knew a lady where she just saw everything as flowers were blooming, you know. She ended up with breast cancer and stuff too, so I'm not so sure that having too flowery of a view is altogether healthy, but just the way she saw things, So we have these tendencies, these habits of mind, and one of the most famous or possibly commonly quoted Buddhist quote is that we think and ponder upon becomes the inclination of the mind. That we think and ponder upon becomes the inclination of the mind. So, for instance, for me, my mind, I think a lot about politics. Oh my God, right? I just think a lot. And if I'm not really paying attention, my mind it'll start to think about politics all by itself, right? It's like it's developed this neural pathway, this ditch in my brain, in my cellular composition of my brain. And if I'm not paying attention, if I'm just walking along, I'll fall into this ditch, right? And I'll be thinking about Trump or thinking about politics or whatever. And that's an inclination of the mind because I think and ponder upon it. And it just keeps getting deeper and deeper and deeper the more we do it, right? It's like we're in there with a shovel, just creating this ditch. So this one is super important, right? It's the second factor of only 8. And it's one that really can send us off in directions that are not useful. They're not wholesome. And this was one of the things that the Buddha saw while he was still a bodhisattva, while he was not yet fully awakened, but he was on his way. He noticed that our thoughts tend to fall into 2 categories, or that's how he divided them: those that are wholesome and those that are unwholesome. Those that are healthy are not healthy. Those that are useful are not useful. And in each of those 2 groups, there were the 3 categories that correspond to the causes of suffering. The first one being desire or greed. I want more, right? So we're thinking about wanting more. Or the second one is ill will or aversion or hate. I don't want that. And then the final one is, or third one is harming. So it's either could be greed, hatred, or harming, which also sometimes could kind of fall into that confusion or delusion, right? But in this case, it's harming, causing harm. And then those are the unwholesome ones. Then on the opposite end are the wholesome. The first one is renunciation, right? Which may not sound too exciting, but we'll talk about it a little bit more. But it's like a generosity or letting go, right? So it sort of counteracts the desire one. And then the second one is goodwill. And we do this at the end of every Sunday, right? We do metta, which is goodwill. It's offering goodwill to ourselves and others. So that's a wholesome way of thinking. Wanting goodwill, I want you to be happy, right? And then the third one is not wanting to do any harm, harmlessness, right? So the Buddha kind of broke it down into those 2 categories and those 3 types of wholesome and unwholesome. And so I thought today we'd talk a little bit about renunciation, the first one of these three. Because in the Western world, it can sound very dry, it can sound very boring, right? It's like, I don't want to renounce all this great stuff, I want to accumulate. This is how we're taught, right? If I just have more clothes or a better apartment or a better partner, or a different school, it's more, 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 more. And the Eastern philosophy coming out of India and China and Southeast Asia and stuff is more the other way. And so there's a little parable or a little story that I'm going to just read right from Joseph's book, which should be, I hope, up. Oh no, it's down there. Okay, first I'm going to share screen with you guys. And then I'm going to find my Kindle reader. Do you see it, Anna Monica? No, that's that. Here we go. Here we go. Thank you. Thank you. Okay, can everybody see like a text from the book? Okay, good. All right, so this is a story that not only is in this book by Joseph Goldstein, but we even heard it in another talk from a nun, and it's a little bit long, but hopefully it's worth it. So this allegedly goes all the way back to the time of the Buddha, right? So a householder, so that's what they call them, householder as opposed to a monk or a nun, named Tapusa went to see Ananda. Ananda was the Buddha's cousin and the Buddha's, you'd say, assistant, right-hand man, always with the Buddha. And apparently he had a photographic memory and he remembered everything the Buddha ever said. Right? So he went to see Ananda and said, "Venerable Ananda, we are householders who indulge in sensuality, delight in sensuality, enjoy sensuality, rejoice in sensuality. For us, indulging in sensuality, delighting in sensuality, enjoying sensuality, and rejoicing in sensuality, renunciation seems like a sheer drop-off." Do you get that? It's like off a cliff, an acantilado. It's like finished. Yet I've heard that in this doctrine and discipline, the hearts of the very young monks leap up at renunciation. They grow confident, steadfast, and firm, seeing it as peace. So right here is where this doctrine and discipline is contrary to the great mass of people. Renunciation, which is so interesting. This is 2,600 years ago in India. And they might as well be talking about today in the Western world, right? Or really anywhere. I mean, we love sensuality. We love, sensual pleasures, buying things, doing things that involve our bodies and stuff. So the idea of renunciation, how could that work? But so as the story goes, after hearing these householders, Ananda said, "Let's go ask the Buddha about this." So they went off to where the Buddha was staying, and Ananda repeated their conversation to the Buddha. The Buddha replied, "So it is, Ananda. So it is." I love it. Even the Buddha could do empathy, right? He did empathy. Exactly. That's how it is. "Even myself, before my awakening, when I was still an unawakened bodhisattva, thought, renunciation is good. Seclusion is good, but my heart didn't leap up at renunciation, didn't grow confident, steadfast, or firm, seeing it as peace. The thought occurred to me, what is the cause? What is the reason why my heart doesn't leap up at renunciation, doesn't grow confident, steadfast, or firm, seeing it as peace?" I mean, I love this. It's like he knew it intellectually, but yet his heart didn't resonate with this. Even the Buddha, right? Then the thought occurred to me, I haven't seen the drawback of sensual pleasures. I haven't pursued that theme. I haven't understood the reward of renunciation. I haven't familiarized myself with it. That's why my heart doesn't leap up at renunciation, doesn't grow confident, steadfast, or firm, seeing it as peace. The Buddha went on to say that by reflecting on the drawbacks of sense pleasures and familiarizing himself with the rewards of renunciation, there arose the possibility of his heart leaping up at renunciation, growing confident, steadfast, and firm, seeing it as peace. So the moral, so to speak, of this story is try it. You'll like it, right? Maybe, hopefully. And, I have to say in my life for many, many years was accumulate, accumulate, accumulate. One house, two houses, one car, two cars, one wife, one, one child, two child, whatever. Now, my life has kind of been, although saladana notwithstanding and, stuff like that, but it has been to try to declutter, to renounce, to get rid of things. And these can even include my thoughts. As I've told this story before, I think once I was on long retreat with a teacher I like very much by the name of Gil Fronsdale, friends with Joseph Goldstein. And I told him about this thought that my brain would not let go of about something I had done years ago. And I had a history of thinking about this thought and being mad at myself, criticizing myself for what I'd done. And Gil Fronsdale says to me, he says, Jim, this is a renunciation practice, right? And I'm like, well, yeah. Then renounce that thought. He's like, just quit it, get rid of it, And he was right. And when he said that, it kind of like, of course. And I barely thought of it since. It's been years. So it can apply in so many ways in our life. And I have found the more I renounce, the more I let go, the better it feels. It just feels better. This accumulation has a sense of tightness for me, a contraction, a holding. It's like, more, okay, more, like this, right? How kind of, open is that? How freeing is that when I'm holding on to all this stuff versus just whatever, right? So let's see, I think I had one other little piece I wanted to add from Joseph. Give me 1 second. So maybe I'll find it first. Recognizing our addictions. Yeah, okay. Back to Zoom. So I want to add this. This may not resonate with everybody, but maybe it will. So I have a personality that is very addictive. We just call it an addictive personality sometimes, right? Where I'll get attached to things and addicted to things, and then it's very hard for me to let them go. And when I was young, it included drugs and alcohol even. It's been a very long time since I've taken any drugs and alcohol, but it's one reason I don't drink now is because it's hard for me to just have one beer. And if I have one, I want to have two, and then I want to have three, and pretty soon I'm calling my cocaine dealer. It's just like really, really ugly. So I just don't do it. Well, in a way, Buddhism is very much about addictions, right? Dukkha, the suffering, comes from clinging. It comes from craving, right? This is the second noble truth. Well, that's addiction, right? The addiction causes this craving. I want. Well, this can be a little subtle, but I recommend it I recommend you to try to be aware, even in your daily life, of what's called the wanting of wanting. So back in the day, maybe not so long ago, we used to get in the United States and maybe in Europe as well, you get catalogs, books of things that are for sale. Nowadays, maybe we just go on Amazon or something like that. But we're looking not so much for an object, but we're looking for the feeling of wanting. It's kind of like, oh yeah, I want that. That feeling of wanting, we interpret as feeling good. It's kind of like we want to want. It isn't really that we even want the object. We just want the feeling of wanting, right? And it's almost like if we're not wanting or if we're not pushing away, then where are we? We're sort of lost. We're confused. We get bored. We start to think crazy things. So either we're going forward and wanting, and this could very well be a survival instinct, right? To want, to look for food, to look for mates, to look for shelter. So it's just something we want to be doing, or we're pushing away stuff we don't want. But it's almost like the brain doesn't like to be in neutral. It wants to either be going in one direction or the other. But it can be a very nice practice to be aware of the wanting, to be aware of that desire. And so if you're meditating and you're wanting a different experience than what you're having, you could also just be aware of that, right? That's a craving for a different experience. While we're taught that really where freedom lies is just in the awareness, the mindfulness of that, but not getting caught in the grips of it. So maybe next time you're meditating, or maybe I'll try to remember next week to bring that up. Is there a wanting, and can you just observe, can you be aware of the wanting and just notice how it's trying to grab onto something. Yeah, so maybe, given what time it is, I'll stop there. We've got a few minutes. If there's anybody who would like to say something, maybe have a question or a comment, or maybe something you noticed in your meditation that's kind of similar to the theme. No, while you're pondering that, I will see if maybe there's one other thing I can add that I liked. And maybe I will add, if there's no one wants to say anything. This wanting, this craving, it is not so dangerous, right? Compared to the other two, the ill will or the harming. Those two are painful, they're dangerous. But because they're also painful, they're a little bit easier to let go of, because it's very hard to cause harm or to hate and not feel it. It's heavy, it's toxic, it's uncomfortable, right? But desire can be so much more subtle. So much more subtle. So it's not as dangerous. The chances are our wanting isn't going to hurt anybody, but it's very hard to get rid of. And this, to find true liberation, it's about letting go, including letting go of our wanting.
I have a question, Jim.
Yes, please.
Sorry.
Is this Denise?
Yes. This is really interesting. I just was wondering, like, if we let go of all the wanting, like, how can we improve? I mean, like, because sometimes wanting something is also like makes us improve our life or ourselves.
Yes, you're absolutely right. And the Buddha recognized that there are wholesome desires and there are unwholesome desires. And so the desire to want to improve yourself, um, that one can be a little tricky because the message there is change myself, right? Really, a better way might be to accept ourself, right? But it still takes a bit of desire, a desire to be fully liberated. These are wholesome desires and they are not discouraged versus the unwholesome desires. And so there is a distinction, but we do get to the point where even those fall away. We get to a point, and I'm not there, but this is what I read, right? Is that we get to a point of acceptance of things as they are that is so complete that even that wanting will fall away. But in order to get on the path, in order to start to do the path, you got to have a little bit of faith, you have to have a little bit of hope, you have to have a little bit of wanting for sure. So yeah, those wholesome ones, just look, is this wholesome? Is this onward leading? We will often say, is it going in the direction of liberation or is it going in the other direction? And if it's the other direction, you let it go. If it's in the forward direction, then you go with it. But you got to watch it. It can be subtle. Sometimes it can be so demanding, even that. God, I want to be liberated. I want to get it. Oof, that's a little too much. You have to back off.
Thanks.
Okay, you're welcome. Anyone else? Okay, well, good. So why don't we do a little metta, which next week we'll talk about the second and third of thought, and maybe we'll be able to go on to the sila practices. But I think, yeah, we probably will easily have a full talk about ill will or goodwill, harming or non-harming. So the antidote for ill will is goodwill. I'm going to say a real quick story. So one of the things I did that on my trip is I went surfing on a surfboard. I used to do that. I used to be addicted to surfing, but now it's once in a while, right? And so I was down in Encinitas, which is in Southern California. And on my surfboard, I got into like an almost a collision with another surfer. And that guy was so mad. He's like yelling at me. So my ego at first yelled back. I defended myself. I'm like, leave me alone. I'm an old man, and we're like yelling. It wasn't working. The guy just kept on yelling. And so suddenly I just go, may you be happy. May you be happy. It was like a miracle. Just from saying it 2 times, loud and with a lot of people present, but just, I felt so much better. It's like that toxic energy left my body. And guess what? He said another couple words, but then he shut up. He stopped too. It was so effective. So, anyways, a pitch for metta, a pitch for offering people goodwill works a lot better than offering him bad will. Anyways, okay, with that, find yourself a comfortable posture. Often like to put my hands on my heart center just to keep that connection going. So for those who don't know, I'll say some phrases out loud and you can repeat them to yourself or use whatever phrases you like better. So starting with I, ourself, may I be happy. May I be well. May I be safe. May I live with ease. And now let's try our Sangha. Using we, reminding ourselves of how we are all practicing for each other. May we be happy. May we be well. May we be safe. May we live with ease. Now the next group, often called the difficult person. And this can be a little more difficult, but let's try to bring to mind, remember, recall somebody who maybe you have a resentment towards right now, that they did something that hurt your feelings, or maybe they didn't do something you had hoped they would do. Bring this person to mind and let's offer them metta, goodwill. May you be happy. May you be well. May you be safe. May you live with ease. And finally, all beings, all directions without exception. May all beings be happy. May all beings be well. May all beings be safe. May all beings live with ease. And finally, let's dedicate the merit, the fruit of our time together here today, of our Sangha community, of our Buddha nature, and of the teachings. Dedicate this to the benefit of all beings. May all beings be happy and peaceful, healthy and strong, safe and protected. May all beings be free from suffering and the causes of suffering, free from war, violence, discrimination, racism, free from hunger, and free from coronavirus. And may all beings find their path towards liberation, towards freedom, towards the end of suffering. May all beings be free. Well, thank you again. I'm happy to form some small groups, but I thought beforehand, just maybe Nacho, do you want to announce about Saladana? It seems like, 6 people maximum, but we've got some movement there. And I want to say that of the things that I think the city wanted us to do and that I wanted to happen, we're probably 99% there. So I'm really excited about that. I wish I could be there, but meanwhile, open the doors to whatever is safe, and legal. But yeah, go ahead, Nacho.
Well, for the moment, we only have yoga classes on Monday and Wednesday, which are, I would say, full or almost full. And on Tuesday also, how is he called? Nawesgavaram.
Carlos knows his name, right?
Nageshwara.
Nagaswara, yeah.
And Amalasiri, they are starting with the teachings of Buddhist on Tuesday afternoon. So there is already that, and hopefully new teachings will begin very soon. So
Yeah. Hey, Carlos, do you think that, what's his name? I'm drawing a
Jerome?
brain. What's that? No, Jerome,
Jerome.
right? Thank you. Do you think he'd be interested in such a small group of only 5 students in him, or is that too small for him?
He's willing to do whatever. So just that in December he has a retreat going on. So December is probably a month that he's already quite busy, but he's definitely willing to do things in Saladana, be it with people that we gather here or bring his own people or so. So he's really interested.
Okay, good, good. Now you'll talk to Nacho then about that, right?
Okay.
so I was thinking that maybe some of us we could join on Sundays with a computer on Saladana or something like that.
Yeah, if you want to figure out how to get
The problem
appropriate
is that
internet or whatever,
we don't have Wi-Fi, so
do you think you could do that without me? Do you think you could do it yourself somehow? Or
we can manage.
okay, yeah. Adelante, go for it.
Thank you.
Okay, well, we'll I'll set up some small groups, and thank you all very much. So nice to see you.